Hello, and welcome back, or perhaps for the first time, to Black Jade Island. For those of you who don't know, Black Jade is my hard mode island. Hard mode is a special set of rules created by Nintendox to make the game just a little bit more challenging. I started off my week by checking my score with the HHA. I got an S rank still, but apparently my back room is holding me back from getting an even S rankier S rank. I harvested, but forgot to water my crops. I honestly don't know how this happened. This is the first thing I do, every day. Every day for like 2 months, I start my day off by watering my crops, and yet, today, I simply forgot. I am sorry to everyone I have hurt, specifically my bank account. Because I forgot to water these, I'm going to be struggling with not having harvestable crops for days, so... I found Daisy May and she was selling turnips for 106 apiece today. I bought 20 again and hopefully I'll have better luck with the turnip prices than I did last week. I went to make my purchases. I didn't realize that Tipper was looking at this loft bed with the desk when I bought it, so I'm sorry, Tipper. This wasn't a spiteful purchase like I did to Wendy the other week, I just wanted it. I headed over to the Able Sisters and paused to make my weekly shirt design. I couldn't get the teeth symmetrical in a way that I didn't hate, so I just leaned into the asymmetry by adding the smaller gold tooth. There. Problem solved. While I was in there, I bought this paper bag that I thought was super funny and had every intention of turning into my hat for the week, but then I sent it into my storage and forgot about it, so maybe next week. I checked my fortune, then my fossils, got some coffee. The rotten turnips did their job. I caught 3 ants and trashed the rotten turnips so they could stop stinking up my island. I hope Daisy May wasn't too upset when she saw them. I finished off my 2 times miles tasks. Sparrow stopped me to give me a present. I did my stretching. I hit up the Nook Stop for the Mother's Day items because, as I said before, limited time items are my weakness. Although the carnations are cute, and I'll probably actually use those at some point. Speaking of stuff I'm not using, I wanted to clear out a little space in my dangerously close to being full storage. Since it was Sunday, I thought it would be best to open my markets. I went through my storage and picked out some of the items that I'm the least likely to actually use. The very second I exited out of the storage menu, Patty decided that now was the time to come visit. I would rather she didn't, not just because I don't like feeling like I'm being held hostage in my own home, but also because I really don't like my living room right now and I don't want anyone to see it. Aside from all of the people who watch this video, I guess. Anyway, I wandered into my spare room for reasons that I no longer remember and got distracted playing with this hanging bird thing. Then I walked back into the living room and Patty decided that she wanted to go home. I ran down to set up my market for the weekend, but unfortunately got no bites this week. Oh well, there's always next week. I started my day with some inventory management to prepare myself for the coming harvest. Put the fish and bugs into their respective jails. I put this cute little bicycle down next to my flower bed. I dropped some of my garbage into my bedroom because I didn't have anywhere else to put it. I had not yet realized my mistake with forgetting to water my crops, so when I walked down to water them, I was very puzzled and upset. Because surely I watered them. I water them every day. But the evidence pointed to me not doing it at some point, and I feared that I had lied to you sometime during the last video. But the past is the past. I had to look forwards to the future. I picked the crops that did grow and tossed the spoiled crops in the garbage where they belonged. I did make extra special sure to actually water the crops today, watering them multiple times just in case. Then it was time for purchases. I wanted the sword so bad. Like, I could have made one of my villagers the true king of England. It would have been so funny. But it was expensive, and I was poor, so I bought this pillow instead. I bought some stuff from the Able Sisters, then I went to interact with the third Able Sister. It was time for another fashion quest. Label asked me to dress in a comfy style and gave me a shirt that upset me for reasons unrelated to the game and entirely related to my day job, but at least the color was easy to match with all the dodo stuff I've been getting. Once I got Label's approval, I got changed back into the weekly outfit. My storage was once again full, so I pulled out the plaza furniture that I've been keeping locked up in preparation for my boardwalk build. You know how boardwalks always have carnival rides? Anyway, I just kind of scattered them randomly over here because I didn't have anywhere else for them. Then I went to go get my fortune told. Red was selling a genuine academic painting, but I couldn't afford to buy it, so I left. I spent an absurd amount of time circling my island hunting for the last fossil for the day. So long that I had actually given up on finding it and turned to gathering up more seashells instead. It was only because my hunt took me up to the skeleton corner of my island that I noticed this diggy spot for the last fossil. I never would have thought to look here. What a ridiculous spawn point for this fossil. It didn't even get me anything new for the museum. Even after all the trouble I went through, I feel scammed. I got my daily coffee, did some stretches, DIY mini workbenches were the hot item, so I made like 10, and sold them all for a bunch of money. Now that I was rich, I was able to head back over to Harv's Island to buy that academic painting. It was nice to finish off the day with a win. My crops were still recovering from Sunday's little mishap. Like yesterday, all of the vegetables were tossed in the trash where they belong. And when I went to water the crops, you're never going to believe this, I forgot to water the upper right square. I honestly don't know what's wrong with me this week. I did my stretches, made some purchases. I got this super cute hair clip at the Able Sisters. I really like wearing hair clips with no hair. I think it's very funny. It doesn't work so well in real life, unfortunately, but in the game I can do it all I want. I saw this banded dragonfly, but it disappeared before I could even get my net out. I looked for it, but it was just all the way gone. Just straight up vanished into the ether. So I headed over to Harv's Island. I stopped by Leaf first to get some camellia starts, mostly because I have a task that requires that I plant trees or shrubs, but also, I don't think I have any camellias on my island yet, and that has to change. I also got some red cosmo seeds because I may want to make some more garden wagons in the future. And then I went and got my fortune told. Since Rocket and Sparrow's houses are where I want my boardwalk stuff to be, I decided to move them in preparation of eventually doing that build. I decided to start with Rocket and moved her house back to be next to Jacob's. And because I'm a good neighbor, I helped her move all of the furniture I left outside her house as well. Since I was in a decorating mood, I decided to decorate the outside of Jacob's house as well. You know that one neighbor you have who just has a bunch of trash in his yard and some of it is really inexplicable, like how did you even get that kind of stuff? I've decided to make Jacob that neighbor. It makes the most sense because the inside of his house is also a landfill. I realized that I didn't have some of the items that I wanted to use outside of Jacob's house with me, so I headed back to my storage to pull them out. The banded dragonfly stopped by to taunt me once more, vanishing again the instant I pulled my net out. I spent a little more time tweaking the outside of Jacob and Rocket's houses before heading up the cliff. I planted the red cosmos outside of Eugene's house. It doesn't suit him, but I didn't have a better place for them just then, so there they'll stay for the time being. I also scattered some more plant starts outside of Wendy's house. I'm going to have to decorate this area properly at some point. I feel like I've got the bones of what I want here. I just need to take some time to actually shape it. But not today. Instead, I headed over to the treasure trawler to see what Red had for me. I really wanted that robust statue, but the amazing painting was real, and since it's the bigger pain in the butt to tell if it's real or not, I simply decided to buy that one and never have to think about it again. I checked my fossils and got my coffee, which was my last 2 times smiles task for the day. Sauna heaters were the hot item, so I crafted just so many of them. I'm going to have to start going on wood harvesting sprees again to rebuild my reserves. Patty had a thought bubble. It turns out she no longer wishes to swear. I changed her catchphrase back to how now because it amused me. I decided to finally clear out all of these white and red and pink roses that I was using to start the blue rose breeding project. They kind of took over this whole section of the island and I have other plans for it. While I was clearing them out, I finally caught my hated enemy, the banded dragonfly, and I had an extremely calm and normal reaction to it. Yes, you, eat my entire you stupid mother. An extremely calm and normal reaction. Eugene also had a flea. That's 2 out of the 3 that I need. Wasp did win that particular race, but maybe the flea can take second place. I donated my hated enemy to the museum, and the fact that Blathers gave me were somehow even less than usual. I was very puzzled and upset when I went to check my crops and saw that one square of them hadn't grown properly. I had not yet reviewed the footage and didn't understand why this happened to me because I knew that I had watered my crops the day prior. So why? I thought we had moved past this. So I took some time, just walked around a bit, dug up a fossil, just until I could bolster my spirits enough to do what must be done. I once again plucked the spoiled crops so that I could toss them in the trash. But the pumpkins were good to harvest, so I did that, and then I made certain that every last one of these plants was thoroughly watered. I found 3 of the day's fossils clustered near Patty's house. It was like the game was apologizing to me for hiding them too well the other day. It's okay, game. I forgive you. The Nooklings were selling cash registers, which was an item I desperately need for the boardwalk, so I bought a bunch of them. Instead of heading directly to the Able Sisters to make my purchases there, I headed back to my house to scour my storage for a gift for Patty. You see, today was her birthday, and I hadn't thought to pick her out a proper gift. I settled on these sunglasses that I had accidentally bought 2 of, wrapped it, and headed over to her house. Kabuki was also in there in his... I was going to say birthday suit, but that's not correct. He was in his suit jacket that he wears specifically for birthday parties. I gave Patty her birthday gift, which she loved, and then I just stood there vibing for a minute, mentally preparing myself for the arduous task to come. I checked my fossils and got some coffee. In real life, I decided it was a good time to go for a coffee break of my own, so there was a very long period of time where game me and Brewster just stared at each other awkwardly while real life me was in the kitchen. Orville also came to join me for some coffee. I remembered to double back to the Able Sisters to buy a pair of shoes that I already had. I went to check my fortune. I had another catch-a-specific type of fish quest, so I decided to go hunting for manila clams to use for fish bait. Flick was on my island. I debated whether to give him 3 of the scorpions for the model or the ants I had caught over the weekend. In the end, I decided on the ants, because I need money. But Flick is extremely slippery and was not where I left him, so I had to go hunting for him once more. It turned out that he was simply hiding behind some trees. I ran through all of my bait trying to catch that goldfish, but came up with nothing but frogs and tadpoles. I held on to 4 of the frogs, 1 for the museum and 3 to give to CJ to make a frog model for me. I'm actually really looking forward to that one. I think it's gonna look so cute. I just love frogs. I ran out of bait, so I thought I would bounce between my 2 ponds until one of them gave me the goldfish, but that got real old real fast, so it was back to clam hunting. I caught a Ranchu goldfish, which was close to being what I wanted. I did eventually manage to get the goldfish on my fishing rod's last cast of its short life. I don't like how quickly the tools break in this game. The flimsy tools are fine because they're flimsy, but I feel like I should get at least 25% more casts out of the fishing rods than I currently do. Of course, this is a complaint I have about every game with breakable weapons, or tools in this case. I headed into resident services and got some free iron out of the lost and found before asking Sparrow to move his house. I plopped it down over here, but I didn't give it the full decoration treatment just yet. I'm not sure if this is going to be a permanent location for this house, I just needed it out of my way. I made my donations to the museum, finished off my daily tasks, did my stretching. Kabuki was still wearing his suit jacket that he wears specifically to birthday parties. And then I ran around filling my pockets with every bug I could catch. I sold them all for a large but not comical amount of money. And then it was scorpion time. I don't actually record audio from myself when I do these recordings in the morning, so I don't have the sound that I made when I saw this ridiculous amount of money. I knew scorpions were worth a lot of money, but I kind of forgot just how much. Isabel let me know that CJ was on my island for the day, so I was all geared up to do a bunch of fishing and maybe even get the rest of the money I need to pay off my home loan and finally get my basement. I harvested and watered my crops. While I was searching for my seashells for the day, I noticed a large shadow in the water and pulled up an oarfish, and then, less than a minute later, I pulled up a second oarfish. As much as I want that frog model, I was not going to get a better opportunity to get this oarfish model. So I grabbed the 3rd one out of my storage, and I started the hunt for CJ. I tracked him down hiding among my trees and gave him the oarfish. I also started the Sea Sports Challenge, which I knocked out pretty easily. Sparrow had a thought bubble, but he just wanted me to deliver an apology gift to Norma. Norma, in turn, gave me a shirt I can't wear as thanks. I stopped by the Able Sisters and oh man, I love the idea of a welding mask, but that color is just... I hate it. So I popped into the dressing room to see if I could get it in a better color, but there's only the one, apparently. I am emotionally devastated. Nook's Cranny didn't have any items that I didn't already have today, so I bought this cute little coffee cup. I headed over to Katrina to get my fortune told, did my stretches, checked my fossils, got some coffee. I went diving to appease my phone, and while I was in the water, a thought occurred to me. Sea creatures are basically fish, aren't they? They go to live with the fish in the museum. I wonder if CJ buys sea creatures. Once I had gathered enough sea creatures to finish off my 2x miles tasks, I headed over to CJ to test it, and he does not buy them, so... I really stopped to consider whether I had it in me to spend another half an hour wandering around my island filling my pockets with fish to sell. And I decided that I did not. Isabel announced that we had another campsite visitor. It would be nice if they replaced Rocket, but we all know that's not going to happen. I think we're all just going to have to accept that Rocket is an albatross that I will wear around my neck until the day I finish this series. I harvested and watered my crops. The oarfish model came in the mail and, I don't know, I thought this would be more, you know? I was really looking forward to this one, but it's just so disappointing. I headed over to the campsite and my visitor was Wart Jr., this cartoon sesame bun-looking dweeb who wanted to play 800 card games with me before finally agreeing to move to my island. He decided to replace Kabuki, which leads me to wonder if maybe the campsite villagers prioritize replacing villagers who share their personality type, or maybe I'm just suffering from confirmation bias. I spotted Gulliver on my beach, but I decided to leave him for now. While I was hunting for fossils, I heard the villager spotting you noise, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from at first. I finally figured out that it was Rocket having spotted me from below, and I begrudgingly climbed down the cliff to learn a new reaction from her. I said my final goodbyes to Kabuki. I'm actually really sad about this one. I liked Kabuki. I checked my fossils and got some coffee, made my purchases. This train seat was very funny to me, so I bought it. I got these shorts from the Able Sisters, headed over to Harv's Island to get my fortune told. I beat Gulliver with a net until he woke up and then went hunting for his communicator parts. While I was searching, I got a little bored and went home to redecorate my living room. I had no plan when I was working on this one, no theme, no ideas, I just sort of threw stuff in the room and arranged it. The only really inspired idea I had was when I decided to have a circle of gyroids staring down from the walls. The ones that didn't fit I tried to scatter on the floor, but I couldn't put any on the train seat like I wanted, so what was even the point? The gyroids that I couldn't fit in the room I put in a little circle over here. It's like they're having a little council meeting. The gyroid Illuminati. I did my stretches. Turnips were selling for 168 apiece, so I sold the ones that I have. I did consider holding off until the evening to see if the price went up further, but nah, not worth the risk. My last 2x miles task was to cut down some trees. I crafted a brand new steel axe and just went to town on these trees that I've been keeping where I'm planning to put my museum. Apparently there were a bunch of items in here that I'd completely forgotten about, like this sink, and this director's chair that I put down in my first week of playing and have not moved since. I found a wasp nest and tried to escape into Norma's house to avoid them, but I accidentally hit A too soon and swung my axe instead of opening the door. Shockingly, this did not save me from getting stung. I finished my day by clearing out my 2x miles tasks. It was raining on Saturday, so I didn't have to remember to water my crops, and so I got distracted and forgot about them entirely. Because of the rain, every time I saw a large shadow in the water, I got excited and fished it up, hoping for a coelacanth, and every time I was disappointed by pulling up yet another sea bass. Since this day was being live streamed, I decided to test out an idea I had for what I wanted to do with a train. I wasn't sure if it would actually work or not, and I wanted another pair of eyes on it before I really committed. The general consensus seemed to be, I guess? Which is good enough for me. Operation Train proceeds as planned. I made my purchases. I wanted that crown because I thought it looked silly, but it wasn't a million bells worth of silly. Maybe once I finished off paying off my debts and all of the infrastructure I want on my island and bells become meaningless, I'll be able to casually drop $1 million on a hat I'll wear one time and then toss into my storage forever. But not today. Instead, I bought these striped tights. I didn't really like what the Nooklings were offering, so I just grabbed this stool and moved on. I did my stretches, cleaned up a little outside of Wendy's house. I gathered up all of the plaza furniture and made my way over to Harv's Island. I made a beeline for Cyrus so that he could customize all of my carnival stuff. I feel like having them all be different colors would look a little bit more natural. Well, I say natural, but you know, you get it. I got my fortune told and headed home. I dumped all of the plaza furniture back where I'm planning to have my carnival area and vaguely planned the area out, like a little bit. I know where a house is gonna go. Then I went back up to Wendy's house to continue my work there. I decided that I only wanted pink and white flowers outside of her house, and all other flower colors were illegal. So I arrested them and put them all in flower jail, by which I mean I moved them slightly to the right so they were off screen when you stand in front of Wendy's house. I finally remembered to harvest my crops, checked my fossils, and got a new one, live, on camera. Between this and the Scorpion Island last week, I'm starting to think that my live streams are lucky. I did a lap around the fossil area of my museum to see which fossils I'm missing. It looks like the only one I have yet to find is the Spinoskull. And that one can't be so rare. I admit I have no idea how the game decides which fossils to give you, but I have a good feeling about this Spinoskull. It's coming, and soon. I went to go get some coffee from Brewster. I did my stretches? Again? I found another centipede while I was hitting this rock. I'll be holding on to this one until I can capture 2 of its buddies. I ran over to my house to cook as much bread as I could in preparation of moving a bunch of trees tomorrow. Then I headed back up to Wendy's to plant more flowers and clear out that last 2 times smiles task. My shovel broke and I didn't feel like crafting a new one myself, so I ran down to Nook's Cranny to buy one, and then a bunch of wallpaper because I have no self-control. Then I remembered that I had wanted to put a little pond outside of Wendy's house, so I headed back up there, opened up the construction app for the 3rd time that day, and really struggled with these trees. They just were not helping me in any way, shape, or form. I did eventually manage to hammer this into something that I'm pretty okay with. I'd like to put a little bench overlooking the pond, but I don't have the recipe for the bench that I want. So it'll have to wait until either I can find it or I find someone willing to craft it for me. I guess that's what weekend markets are for. Since I had finished off all of my dailies, I decided to hit a Cap'n Island. It was only a wheat island, nothing terribly exciting. But we did get a new recipe off the beach, so that was something. Then I decided to head over to a mystery island. This one was a little more exciting. It was a bamboo island. Would have been nice to see this one a couple weeks ago, huh? Oh well, I harvested the bamboo from nearly every tree on the island before my axe broke. Honestly, I'm shocked it held on as long as it did. Good job, axe. You will be missed. For approximately 7 seconds before you are replaced and forgotten. The only thing left for us to do is the KK Slider concert. While I have you here, thank you all so much for watching. If you liked the video, please go ahead and hit the button that tells me so. And if you want to make sure not to miss any of my other videos, go ahead and subscribe. I've started streaming my hard mode adventures on Saturdays at around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and if you have the time, it would be great to see you there. I hope to see you all again next week.
Now, me, oh, me, me. Now, me, oh, me,